May I have your attention? Before we begin this meeting, we ask that everybody silence your cell phones. FBISD is Board of Trustee meetings, an open meeting for the public to address the board. Excuse me. Open meeting to the board to conduct district business. Therefore, patrons may address the board during the designated section of the agenda item. If the printed materials are may be given to the board members, you must provide them to the board secretary, Jane Kaiser, or to me, and I'll provide them to the board members. We ask that members of the audience be respectful of others and remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Ontiveros. The time is 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. We have the presence of a quorum, and this meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required by law. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone will stand, and Mrs. Porter, if you can introduce those leading us in the pledges tonight.
We are proud that two exceptional Baines Middle School students will be leading the Pledges of Allegiance tonight. Lexi Esperiqueta is a 7th grade honor roll student and is an outstanding role model, excelling in academics, athletics, and arts, and is a member of the award-winning Baines cheerleading team. Cameron Coyne is an 8th grade honor roll student and a member of student council. He is also an outstanding role model, excelling in academics, the arts, athletics, and playing on the Baines basketball team. Lexi and Cameron, will you lead us in the pledges?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you very much. If you could remain standing now for our silent invocation. Thank you. You may be seated. Next item of business is recognitions. Dr. Dupree, do we have recognitions tonight?
We do. Ms. Porter, would you please introduce our outstanding staff and students?
Be proud to do that.
And if the board would join me in front of the dais, we'd like to shake their hands.
Tonight we have Mahim Sawani, and she placed second for a website in which she worked with another student entitled Oil and Gas in the Gulf of Mexico, Rights and Corporate Responsibilities for Drilling and Production. Mahim and her co-student Sonia Shahid advanced to nationals and placed 10th in the nation. Please help us recognize and congratulate Mahan Sawani and Sonia Shahid. And their teacher, Debbie Hansen. And for our next recognition, we are proud to recognize the Dulles High School UIL academic teams. Tonight, the Dulles High School UIL academic teams are placing second overall in the state contest. Additionally, the science team placed first overall. Team members are Siddharth Guha, who also placed second place overall and was the top chemistry scorer. Raul Navakar, sorry about that, who also placed first in individual, and Aman Patel. The number sense team placed overall second. Team members were Rick Nag, Joseph Wynn, Ahi Chatterjee, and Brent Zhang. Please help us and congratulate the following students as they come forward. Siddharth Guha, Raul Nevakar, Aman Shorta Patel, and their coach Drew Pochet. Rick Nag, Joseph Wynn, Ahi Chatterjee, Brent Zhang, and coach Sarah Cleveland and coordinator Anthony Yim. Tonight, we are also proud to recognize the Elkins High School Euro Challenge team for their first place in regional finals at the Euro Challenge and advancing to the national level. Euro Challenge is an academic competition sponsored by the European Union with the purpose of encouraging American students to understand the economic and political structure of the EU. Teams chose one of several economic issues, such as the slowdown of economic growth, and then created a presentation on that topic for a specific EU country, such as Portugal. The national level was held at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York City. Please help us recognize and congratulate Joyce Chen, Joyce Verges, Adesh Brahmadat, Prakul Suresh, and their sponsor, Joshua Hill. Tonight, we are proud to also recognize Clements High School U.S. History teacher Mike Madden, who has been awarded the Frank R. Kimmerer Award by the Texas Association of Secondary School Administrators. The purpose of this award is to recognize an outstanding social studies teacher at the high school level. The award is named for Dr. Frank Kimmerer, longtime professor in the Education Department at the University of North Texas. Dr. Kimmerer's teaching and writing consistently displayed a level of scholarship and professionalism that set a high standard for his students, many of whom now serve as teachers or administrators in Texas public schools. Only one Texas social studies teacher receives this award each year. Mike Madden was formally recognized at a conference hosted by TASSP and the Texas School Administrators Legal Digest. Please help us recognize and congratulate Michael Madden. Thank you, Dr. Dupree. That concludes our recognitions.
All right, the next item of business is the board members' reports. Thank you all for being here tonight. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you to the principals who came to support their students and staff. And feel free to watch the rest of the meeting online later this week. It's sure to be interesting. All right, we're ready for board members' reports. Mrs. Bailey, can you report on the activities?
Yes, I can, and it's a long list, so bear with me. We've been very busy. All right. We've attended the Fort Bend Chamber State of the Schools Luncheon, high school open houses, Heritage Rose Elementary PTO meeting, Gulf Coast Area Association of School Boards meeting, Missouri City Leadership Luncheon, Central Fort Bend Chamber Leadership 101 Retreat, FBISD Summer School Graduation, FBISD Middle School Instructional Conference, FBISD Employee Night at Skeeter's Game, Internal Audit Committee meetings, I know they've been working hard, Salt and Light Ministry Launch Meeting, Lots of school visits, Lakeview Elementary, Colony Meadows Elementary, Walker Station, Sugarland Middle School, Drawback Elementary School, E.A. Jones Elementary School, and Clements High School. Fort Bend Education Foundation Back to School Scramble. Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce Education Division Legislative Dinner. Varsity and JV volleyball games. Varsity football games. Willow Ridge Wall of Honor Banquet. Community dinner at Everest Academy. Kempner VIPS meeting. School Health Advisory Council meeting. And that is it. Do you want any more?
I didn't add on there. I also visited Quail Valley Elementary School, if you want to add that to the list.
No.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any special reports from anybody? I'd like to, since this is our first regular meeting since the opening of school, I'd like to thank Dr. Dupree and all the administrative staff for opening school in Fort Bend ISD on time and with very few problems. We were, remarkably, my email was remarkably quiet, as I think the rest of the trustees can say also. So thank you very much for all your hard work in opening school in Fort Bend.
And I just have one comment. I've been attending the varsity football games, and I don't know if y'all probably know I'm a big fine arts promoter, and I just want to give a big thank you to anybody who's involved with those marching bands. They do a phenomenal job. So I just want to thank all those band directors, volunteers. Let's not forget about the dance team, the cheerleaders, everything that goes in. They work just as hard as those football players do. So I just want to recognize them and say thank you.
And band night is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
so
I'm
we can really
excited.
see all the bands at one time. That's just a little plug. If Mr. Drew was here, he would have said the same thing. All right, I think we're ready for information items. So, Dr. Dupree, what do we have for information?
Thank you, Ms. James. This evening, we're going to provide the board an update on the College and Career Readiness Plan. You'll recall that the board approved that plan in the summer of 2013, and we've done a lot of work in the last year, and we're very proud to feature a few items tonight. Of course, the work is much more significant than what we can highlight in a brief meeting, so we have given the board a written update. So tonight will be more of a highlight report, and Dr. Hill will introduce the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Good evening. Tonight, Dr. Garcia is going to walk you through the key areas of our college and career readiness initiatives. She'll be referring to information provided to you last week in your college and career readiness notebooks. Our plan is to walk you through the notebook similar to the manner in which you reviewed the district curriculum audit last week. Tonight's focus is a progress report on our new CCR initiatives and data related to the implementation during the past year. While we provided you with some student data in the notebooks, we are going to focus on implementation data tonight, as we will have more student data arriving in October from both the College Board and the National Student Clearinghouse. So we're waiting for that data to come in to provide a more complete report. We wanted to go ahead tonight and provide you with the student data later, even though there's more to come. And we would like to review it in a workshop format so that we can provide more interpretive data and analysis and an opportunity for more discussion. Therefore, tonight, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Garcia to provide you an overview of our implementation.
Thank you. President James, members of the board, and Superintendent Dupree, thank you for the opportunity to give us some time to give you an update of a plan that everyone's been working really diligently on. So it's my pleasure to do that tonight. But before I begin, I'd like to recognize some of the members that are in the audience, members of our Department of College and Career Readiness. And the first person was introduced just a little while ago, Steve Shields, who is the Director of College and Career Readiness. He's the new me. And Dr. Terry Sheneman is with us as well, and he is the Coordinator of College and Career Readiness. And we also have with us Kelly Fox. She is a coordinator for secondary counselors, and we currently have a vacancy for elementary counselors, and we hope to fill that pretty quick, because Kelly is doing double time. She's actually working with all counselors, as is Steve. So thank you for allowing me to do that. The CCR advisors, and you know there's 11 of them, could not be with us tonight because they are conducting Naviance nights in the open houses. So they are really where they need to be. You can get to meet them another time if we have that opportunity. The plan that you are being updated on, as Dr. Dupree said, was approved last June of 2013. And a copy of the published plan was included in the front part of your binder. How many of you brought your binders with you? Okay, well, we do have some loaners, and they are loaners because we're on a very tight budget, and we can't make any more.
I think only Mr. Rice doesn't have his right at the moment. But I'm sure
He gets in-school suspension for that.
if you don't bring you were going to have a book check next week, and you need to bring it, we're going to check the number.
Well, I'm a counselor at heart, and I don't met out discipline, so he will not be going on my part to the on-campus suspension. So let's go ahead and begin. Now that you have that, what I'd like to do is, at this time, I would like to point out some key pages of this plan, and I'll kind of do a sort of a little walking tour for you. First, I'd like to say that the areas that we're going to be monitoring on this plan are 2020 outcomes, and those are 5 outcomes that we will be working on to achieve by 2020. So these are, and I'll show you where those are, and then there's 12 essential components that I'll show you where those are in a minute, which are really adopted as, if there's 12 essential components to a solid college and career readiness program, then we're going to monitor ourselves on that as well. And then there's 6 targeted measures for which we've been collecting baseline data. And then I'll explain in a little bit about why we also have some subcommittee recommendations. So if you'll, in your notebook, you will find the published plan right after the reports, and if you can find the plastic little protector page, that's where the plan begins. And if you'll turn to page 3, at the bottom of page 3 are our 5 major outcomes. When the board approved the plan in June 2013, House Bill 5 was still a work in progress by the state. So what I'd like to say is that we waited to publish this plan until all the elements of House Bill 5 were completed so that we could update our plan with the elements of House Bill 5. As you can see on page 3, and I'll just go over them briefly, the outcomes really are about students performing on or above grade level in reading and math, which are the 2 major areas that are tested in our college entrance exams as well. As a former high school math teacher, I always thought it was the most important thing, but now I realize that reading is the most important thing. If you can't read well, you really can't do math very well either. So reading and math are critical. Establishing an effective pre-K-12 continuum of counseling services, or the implementation of a developmental guidance program throughout the district pre-K through 12. I'm on page 3. Another outcome is working with students and parents to provide opportunities for college and career information. And then students who graduate on one of the highest level graduation plans, and right now currently they are still the recommended and the distinguished plan, and then we'll have the achievement and the foundation with endorsements. That's another outcome that will score. Not only do we want students to graduate on these plans, but we're going to put a lot of strength in it. We want them to score at the college and career readiness level, because we've looked at data, and even though we have like almost 90% of our students in the past few years higher than the county, higher than Region 4, and higher than the state level of graduating on the recommended program, the college readiness indicators aren't where they need to be. And the last one is having us be in the top quarter of all school districts when measured in comparison to college and career readiness of our students, again looking at those assessments that the kids have to take. So if you turn to page 4, That's the second item on the PowerPoint. The 12 essential components of a college and career readiness plan. We're including these 12 components, as I said, as we conduct progress monitoring. As you can see from these established, developing a college career readiness culture is critical. The climate and the culture are real important. And I won't go through all of them, but some of the key ones are improving advanced academic offerings, strengthening advanced academics with a lot of rigor. For the purpose of this plan, advanced academic refers to pre-AP, AP, and dual credit. Our teachers are critical to advanced academics, so providing teachers with supportive training is another one, and establishing innovative models for schools is another one, and including the parents, community, and business throughout the process. So those are just a few. I won't go through all of them. You have them in front of you. At this time, if you'll turn to page 11, okay, of the plan, you will find this beginning of the 6 targeted measures. These are described on pages 11 through 15. And these measures will serve as our foundation for ongoing progress monitoring. Today you will get a balcony view, so to speak, of target measure number 1. And I say balcony view because just for this one measure, you received extensive data. And as Dr. Hill mentioned, that we want you to be able to review over time. And as she also indicated, we will update this data and provide a more in-depth analysis during at which time we will be able to help you interpret the data. Target measure number 1 is on equity and access for all students as evidenced by their enrollment in grades 6 through 12 in one of these courses, pre-AP, AP, or dual credit. Okay, let's see. I'll leave that. Let me just give a little bit of background. The task force initially began with 20 district employees, 20 staff members, principals, teachers, central administrator staff. Once the plan was developed, we decided to expand the committee, as was presented last summer, to include community members and more principals and more teachers. So the task force grew from the initial 20 members to 67 members, which included 17 campus staff members, 17 district members, 28 campus staff members, and 22 members of the community, but businesses, higher ed, parents, and students. These 67 members, it was so large that we decided to divide them into 4 major subgroups. And each subgroup researched their area, and most of them chose the area they wanted to work on, they had the most interest in, to develop some more recommendations. The first one was the major areas are recommendations for building capacity for future growth, emerging occupations, careers, and business partnerships. The second major area was recommendations from the trends of success and excellence, high school models for the 21st century. The third one was recommendations for the role of the principal and counselor in the college and career readiness process. And the last one was recommendations for advanced academics and post-secondary preparation. Those were the 4 major areas. And there are 28 subcommittee recommendations, but those are not the ones we're addressing tonight. The 2 recommendations we're talking about tonight come from the original plan that was developed. I'd like to continue to walk you briefly through the binder. Since this is an ongoing process with much information, we wanted to have a way to organize and continue the flow of information to you in a way for you to be able to kind of harness it and put it together in a way that was easy to get to. If you notice the tabs, you've got all the performance targets there from 1 to 6, which eventually you'll be getting. You have the recommendations under the first one where it says recommendations. You've got 2, and one is for the CCR Resource Center and Advisors, which we'll be presenting on tonight. You also have 1 tab for the Naviance program, which we'll be presenting on tonight. And then, of course, we go on to the subcommittee recommendations tab, and then the outcomes. And you'll be getting information for this whole process, and you'll have a venue to put it in. Okay? The scope of this presentation is on the 2 recommendations that I mentioned and performance target number 1. And implementation of Naviance, which is the second one. Most of you were here to vote for it, which we're very fortunate to be able to get this incredible college and career readiness planning software system, and we'll give you more data on that. Okay, so we know that you've seen the data, or you will be seeing the data, that there was just a whole lot of data that you received on the CCR centers and the advisors. And from what we've seen, we've kind of gathered some challenges and opportunities from that data. We know that you saw that advisors last year reached out to over 50,000 students. Almost 17,000 parents were reached out either individually or in groups through numerous financial aid nights, and we had a huge increase in scholarship money. However, we still had our challenges, and there are still some unknowns that we will continue to research. For example, what was the district impact in reaching to these 50,000 students through another support system and these parents? We will continue to follow up on this and give it to you. Also, last year, our first year did seem a bit scattered and hurried in the implementation. We were rushed to get the CCR advisors all on board for the beginning of school and make sure that each of their centers was open in time for the kids. Additionally, so we are now going to look at this in a more purposeful way and in a more systematic approach to how we provide the services and measure the outcomes. Additionally, fitting this position with the overlap in responsibilities of the counselors was a bit confusing and rocky on some of our campuses. The counselors didn't quite know, this is my responsibility. The CCR people also felt that, maybe, they weren't quite on their lane, but it was a little bit rocky, but I'm here to say that there's much better understanding of the importance of both of these roles, and they're working more in harmony. The four major areas that we decided to highlight for you and opportunities that we did sense, we did note rather, significant gaps in percentages of scholarship money offered at 11 campuses. And you'll see that in your data that we shared with you. Class time for us to present to kids. Carving out class time is very difficult because, rightfully so, teachers don't sometimes want to give their class time. We were disappointed, for example, on the use of the online SAT and ACT test prep. We had an incredible tool for kids that were introduced to it, but we didn't have as many kids making use of it as we would have liked. Tracking college admissions, the opportunity to more accurately track actual college admissions via Naviance will now be possible. We know where we send the final transcripts, but we don't know how many kids actually land there. So we'll be able to do that for you. Okay. Now about Naviance. And before we go over our 3 Naviance slides, I need to introduce Ann Howard. Ann, could you please stand? Ann is the Information Technology Project Manager, and the implementation of Naviance in FBISD is a model for collaboration at its best, if I do say so myself. Ann and her team have been instrumental in Naviance launching not only on time, but ahead of schedule. And Julie Stewart, who is the manager in the Student Information Systems Department, and her team were also an incredible help. I don't think Julie's here with us right now. I also want to thank Long Pham for his vision that included helping us understand the complexities of systems integration and databases and allowing Ann to spend so much time with us. Initially, I just didn't understand why we needed a project manager. And thankfully, Mr. Long Pham was really right. I just thought, we're just going to turn on the switch and it's going to happen. And of course, I was very wrong. So anyway, we began last spring with the initial training of middle school counselors in April, and as we have implemented this initiative, we have had successes and opportunities to learn and grow. Okay, so what about Naviance? Well, now everyone is fully trained. We began with middle school counselors, then we went to secondary counselors, then registrars, registrar assistants, and the project managers at each campus. And September 8th, Naviance was officially launched. And today I can say proudly that over 8,000 high school students are already using Naviance. The registrars are sending transcripts through eDocs, and counselors and teachers are sending letters of recommendations through eDocs. So it's a one-stop shop. Everything's contained within that one student's account. Okay, challenges and opportunities also for Naviance is, again, like time, like we said with the College Career Readiness Advisors, opportunity to guide students through Naviance activities, career assessments, SAT, ACT. Equity and access is a big issue. As you know, our targeted measure 1 is about equity and access of use across the district at all campuses at the same standard, so bringing the program to scale. And utilization of Naviance as a one-stop shop for college and career preparation is also getting kids to understand the value of the program. So that is some of the challenges that we've noted. Now we move on to targeted measure number 1, equity and access. And the next 4 slides are on this. And again, I'd like to emphasize that we will continue to gather and receive baseline data in the coming weeks relative to this measure. We all work together because we're interdependent and interrelated as it applies to all of this 3 here. We are measuring equity and access from the College Career Readiness Department. We also are very thankful that we were able to add a position for coordinator of advanced placement, CNI, curriculum and instruction. So that person will be working with our data as well to see where these gaps are of enrollment. And also we have several staff members working on the academies. And so instead of touching on the academy data that we gathered, we will wait till all of that data is complete to bring forth to you. I'm going to start with dual credit. We're served by 2 colleges, as you know, and we participate in both academic dual credit and CTE dual credit programs. We used to have a very strong BIM program, Business Information Management, and last year we only offered 1 class, and this year we don't have any classes offered under CTE. What we do have is still a very strong firefighter program, a 2-year program that leads to certification, so we do have that. Meredith Wadasek. Meredith, can you raise, is Meredith with us? Oh, here she is. She is just wonderful. That's another great thing that has happened under the leadership of Dr. Dupree and your support, is that we separated my position initially so that we had a CTE director and a college career readiness director to be able to really work on the CTE programs that we need to do. And right now, Meredith is working with Texas State Technical College to try to bring welding, small engine repair, and diesel mechanic dual credit to our district. And we're very hopeful about that. So we realize that this is a huge challenge, and if you read the information that I gave in the reports, you'll see why it's such a challenge. But our enrollment has been declining over the past few years. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we have challenges, we have opportunities. I think the initial focus for us as we begin to rebuild our dual credit program is to focus on 4 high schools that are under the Houston Community College service area, because these kids can get dual credit free. They don't, their tuition is waived, so if we could start focusing on them. The report will show you that through Warren County Junior College, kids do have to pay anywhere from $500 to $600, even sometimes $700 per course. And so that can be pretty expensive for some of our children. So if we can begin on focusing on the 4 high schools where it is free, that's what we need to do. We want to explore some options for growing our own teachers. That seems to be a huge dilemma in being able to offer the courses. And Houston Community College will only send someone to teach a class if there are 2 classes, and they have to be back-to-back, and sometimes they kind of dictate at what time, and it's not compatible with our master schedule. So growing our own teachers it can be an incredible success story, because right now we have 93 seniors taking English 4 dual credit at Elkins High School, and the reason we're able to do that is because for the first time we have 2 English teachers with a master's degree in English. So they are teaching the class, so we can teach it at any time during the day. So that can be a huge avenue. And I've already mentioned the CTE-related careers and interests that we need to continue to look through. Okay, pre-AP and AP challenges and opportunities. You've seen the data. You have a lot of data. It's, we know, we all are very aware that we have underrepresentation in a lot of our pre-AP and AP courses by special programs, and also in some of our ethnic representation is low. And we're reviewing the equity in the form of this underrepresentation and trying to establish pathways early on. it's very evident that we can't just get kids to the ninth grade and say, okay, now you're going into pre-AP, now you're going into AP. You're going in there, you're going to stay in there, you're going to be successful, because it doesn't work that way. You can't raise the bar without raising the expectation and the foundation early on, and that happens as early as fifth grade, but it can happen in middle school. So we're looking at identifying barriers. The culture may be part of it, of these underrepresented populations. We're going to focus on curriculum, like I said, that begins early on. And the kids need support systems. Many times, kids panic early on, and the first thing they want to do is go drop a class. That's the easy way out. The hardest thing is to sit there and converse with them over and over of why it's important for them to stay in those classes. In implementing our college and career readiness plan, we know that we have many areas in which to refine and improve how we support students in the future. We're well aware of that. However, we feel that in our first year of implementation, by working collaboratively with our staff, students, parents, businesses, and community members, we have a good foundation that we can grow on. And as this slide says, we really are optimistic and see many opportunities, and we are looking forward to the future as we continue to provide you information so you can start filling in your tabs. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Do we have any comments or questions from the board? We do. We have a lot of nodding. And would we like to start down here, Mr. Burdine?
I just wanted to say thank you very much. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot to compile, and I appreciate your hard work in that matter. I look through this the other day when we got it dropped off, and it was a great presentation to get a little bit more, so I look forward to looking at it once again. So I just wanted to say thank you to your staff and your hard work.
Well, thank you. I want to say that originally, the way why it was prepared in such in-depth was because we were going to do it in a working session last week, but we got bumped by Ginger Carabine. And so all of a sudden, we're all panicked and saying, how do we present this at a podium? So hopefully you'll allow us the opportunity to come back and do it in a work session where we can flip through the pages and talk about that. Thank you.
All right, Mr. George?
First of all, I appreciate your effort, like Jason Burdine said. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of effort, so many people involved in it, and I'm glad we are going in the right direction. But when it comes to college and career readiness, is a very passionate area for me, and we talk about it all the time. In the past also, and I know we cannot hold accountable you all for what happened in the past, but I have maybe some of my comments, and also I have some suggestions in this area. And I see that, especially when it comes to our test preparation courses, very few students are taking advantage of it. And I talked to some high school students about it. Before I get there, I appreciate you all are sending this folder. That was a good way to do some homework on it. And even, sorry to say this, some of these kids doesn't know these things exist. And I don't know why. And that's one. And if you really look at, I don't know how many high school students we have from 9th grade to 12th grade, but 683 students utilizing ACT and 1158 student participating in SAT. In my opinion, we have a lot of room for improvement in there. And also seniors completing, college applications, it's only 81%. And also financial aid application, I see that 54%. Another thing is, I see that there is 28,417 students contacted by the advisors. But my question is how? Is that sending an email? I don't consider that as a contact. If that email is being communicated back, I consider that as a contact, because many of these kids doesn't even look at these emails. And I don't know how you're counting that. Again, that's another concern. On page 3, beginning, it's mentioned something like core subject teacher collaboration is recommended. We need to continue. My concern is why we didn't do that earlier. They can really communicate with, because they are in front of these students on a regular basis. How come they didn't do in the past? I mean, again, I know that you cannot answer that, but I'm kind of confused about that. We could have been, because that's a free resource available, and also coming back to some of the ethnicity-wise students' performance when it comes to AP, pre-AP, and GT students. One of the concern I had was why there is only less than 50% of the GT students participating in AP and pre-AP courses. And I talked about it. I talked to people around it, and no offense, we love our children, but if we don't put some kind of these things like saying that if you wanted to continue to be treated as a GT student, you got to take at least one AP course moving forward. Otherwise, you're not part of that elite team. And things of that nature. Other school districts like Lamar Consolidated did that. And I don't know the legalities of that, but I think that's one way they get motivated to be part of that. Otherwise, they're capable of doing it, but they don't want to work hard. I mean, or maybe they choose for various reasons. There's so many. And also another last point I say that about one thing about mentioned in this about parental pressure might be a reason for some Asian students. More Asian students participated in these programs. Maybe academies, maybe pre-AP. I don't know. English is my second language. I don't know. But I thought many times I pressure somebody in a negative, way we look at it. And what about we say something like a higher parental expectation? That's what we had in our household. And, and it worked out very well for us. And I know a lot of people. And maybe it is a cultural integration or understanding different culture, how it work. And I know that, we set higher expectation. Another point I wanted to mention is the Kempner High School and also Elkins High School lost student to academy program the most. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know there is anything to wonder about it, because that's where most of the Asian population is demographically located, and they are willing to take the chance to go, and they know that these academy programs or even GT and all these programs, they are willing to go to any campus and study, and that is my observation. And two of my children went to a different campus, not where we zoned to. So these things, I think it is more like I think it is a cultural way to look at it also, because when it comes to Asian parents, they really look at where I can get the best education, that they just go wherever they can. So things of that nature, I thought it was, once again, I come back and I see that we are going in the right direction with a lot of good things, and no, I'm not saying we are not doing our job. We are going in the right direction. But especially communicating with the students and also communicating with the parents. And I hope we could do a better job so that, and even many parents doesn't know any of this stuff. Right. And we have to find a way to get to these parents, somehow. So I know I've been talking too long, and, I conclude, but appreciate your effort, appreciate your hard work, but some of the areas we could definitely improve a lot. Thank you.
Yes. And Mr. George, all your points are well taken, and we will make note of it, and I can assure you that we're leaving no stone unturned. We're looking at where we are experiencing success, and many times it is because the online courses are being embedded through classroom guidance to the English teachers or the science teachers. So those are all true. And I just want to reassure you that our data in terms of Asian students is not unusual as compared to other Asian populations across the state. Usually they run between 35 and 40% of those students who take AP. Our goal is to get everybody else up, okay?
Thank
To
you.
that level. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, others? Mrs. Towson?
So I would like to say, first of all, that I am very excited about the direction that we're taking and the vision that we have laid out here. Especially, I'm very excited about Naviance, and I'm missing my night tonight. So I
Well,
think.
I bet since Mr. Shields didn't have to present tonight, he might do a one-on-one with you at some point.
Some of the board members might need a little
You
help
might
with
need
that.
a one-on-four.
Yes, several of
There are
us.
4 or 5 of us that are missing our nights.
So I am very excited about that. I will say one concern that I have as a parent, and I have 3 children in Fort Bend, as most people know. And my oldest daughter receives services through special education. And this says a comprehensive plan, and I don't see anything about special education in here. So my question is, and it is a concern for me because I was very excited to get this and kind of see how that was going to fit with transition services and how it was going to fit, because she's in 8th grade, and so we're ready to start planning. And I really don't see where it's fitting in here. And, I mean, I not only don't see it addressed, but a few concerns, or not necessarily concerns, but some observations I would make that we might want to think about is, on page 3, when we talk about the 2020 outcomes and we say all students will perform at or above grade level in math and reading. Well, in our special education population, that's not going to happen. So my question is, how do we measure the students that are in our special education population? How do we measure student achievement? When I turn over to student achievement, we have, we have lots of populations listed, and we talk about ACTs and SATs, and a lot of our kids in SPED are not going to be doing that. So where do they fit into this achievement plan? Also, looking on page 4, when we look at the 12 essential components, which I think are great, but I start wondering, where does Abby fit into this? Where does my oldest daughter fit into this? So that would be an overarching question and concern I would have, is that if this is comprehensive, where does our special population fit in?
Okay. And I will call your attention to equity and access. And in the targeted measure, we are measuring the inclusion first in terms of, are we being inclusive with all our students? We're measuring the ELL population in terms of accessibility to all kinds of programs, CTE, and you don't have the whole comprehensive, but every one of our special populations are identified as low socioeconomic English language learners, special education, and gifted and talented.
Right.
And so we're also looking for the first time, and I'm working with Dawn, as to research who our twice exceptional children are. And I think sometimes we tend to ignore them, and they're a very critical population for us, and I have a special place in my heart for them as well. So we'll be looking at all those things. But your points are well taken.
Okay, so is that something that we should expect to see in the future?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw those populations listed, and it's easier to see where the children and the English language learners and the low socioeconomic and GT can fit into this framework. I don't see how special ed population fits into this framework. A lot of time, of course, they have individualized plans. So it's, when we say something like all students will perform at or above grade level, that is leaving out an entire population of our kiddos who are not going to perform at or above grade level. So that would be, I would like to see how that's going to fit in and how we're specifically
And we did
addressing
collaborate
it.
with special education, and all of the transition special ed coordinators have been trained on Naviance so that they can help transition the kids into the world of work if that's the area they're going into. So they've all been trained as well. So we're very inclusive, but your points are well taken, and we'll bring forth more data.
Okay, and so when we're looking at these outcomes, that's something I would like to see added or potentially addressed.
Okay.
Because that's what I just don't see, is I really don't see that population addressed when we're looking at the overarching outcomes and what that might mean for them. I had another question. So looking at, so going on the other end of my kids, which is the GT, and really I have a daughter that's been in regular ed, but she's taking the pre-AP classes now at Baines Middle School. And one of my questions for you is, because one of the things I've experienced and heard other parents experience is that sometimes the barriers to the pre-AP, AP, is that our kids are not making a very good transition from the 5th grade to the 6th grade. And so they're struggling when they get into that middle school arena versus the elementary school. So have we looked at, I know we've talked about vertical alignment and that we're trying to work to make sure that our kiddos are going from 4th to 5th to 6th and then on up through high school. So are we looking at that and how to maybe smooth that transition from 5th to 6th grade and then from 8th to 9th grade? Because that's kind of what I've seen in my house, is that my daughter, she was always in the, my middle daughter wasn't GT identified. And so she was always in those, but she was always in those classes, and then now she had the opportunity to take the pre-APs. We're seeing that the foundation's not there, is kind of what we're experiencing, so.
And that's what I meant when I mentioned we can't just raise the bar without the foundation and the expectation. And if you remember last week's presentation from Ginger and Susan Vordakas, you asked, are we just preparing them for STAR? And actually, I was kind of on the edge of my seat to tell you, no, we're not, because we're really, when you look at both plans and they're blended together, we're not just preparing them for STAR. I mean, we're shooting for the stars for every one of our kids. But the audit, the curriculum audit made it very clear that we did have some huge gaps, and we are working on that all together. And so we're kind of tied at the hip. We all sit down and work together, and now that Dawn, special education, is in my department in federal and special programs, I'm going to sit down and ask her, what kind of outcomes do you see for your children besides just training your staff on transition? So you've given me some good ideas.
Good. Well, and I appreciate you saying that about STAR. That's why I asked that question, because I know that we're not, and I think it is important for our parents to hear that from us, that we are, student achievement means more than that. So we appreciate that.
And I appreciate working for a school district and a board that's so passionate about college and career readiness, because that is my passion. As a matter of fact, my husband sometimes tells me I need to rein my passion in a little bit, because I get real vocal about all kids, and making equity for all children. So thank you very much. I appreciate the board.
And personally, I don't think you should rein it in. I think it's great. Keep it up. Thank you very much for that presentation.
All right, I think we might have some more questions or comments. Mr. Rosenthal, we'll just come right on down the road.
Thank you for that presentation. It was very good. Very thorough notebook and the stuff in our Dropbox. Question about the dual credit. You mentioned Elkins. Is that actually being taught at Elkins?
Yes, sir. We have 93 students right now.
So I'm just curious, why would we do that and have the pre-AP and AP? I mean, what's the difference? Why not just have those kids take either pre-AP or AP classes instead of having 3 different categories?
Well, one size doesn't fit all, and there are a lot of students who do opt instead for the AP, and in order to be able to gain some college hours with your advanced placement, you do need to sit for a national test from College Board, and normally a 3, 4, or 5, depending on the university. There are very few universities, I think there are few, but there's few. Some people would say there's more than few, but that don't accept AP or college placement. Whereas in dual credit, the students actually earn the credit by passing the course, because the teachers follow the same syllabus that the college professors are using. If kids are going to Ivy League schools or applying for some of those high-powered schools, Stanford and, some of these high-powered UCLA and, Trinity and Rice, most of them will probably veer more towards the AP. The pre-AP prepares all students for either dual credit or AP, the pre-AP.
So it sounds to me like HCC is being pretty rigid with their schedules, and do you ever see us really taking advantage of their teachers? And again, now when you say that, they're coming to our campuses to do that?
When they send someone, yes, they're coming to our campus.
Okay, but in other cases, somehow we're expected to get our kids to their campuses, correct?
Well, if we have the qualified teachers, which what it takes is a master's degree in any field, could be in education plus 18 hours in your area of specialty. If I was going to teach some dual credit math, then I would need 18 hours in mathematics or government and political science. So if we have our teachers, they love that. And let me explain, in defense of HCC, and, I'm going to look at both sides of the coin here. Our students aren't paying tuition. They are paying the professor. They're also paying health benefits and retirement, and they want to make it worth their while when they send someone out there to classes. And the other thing is that they tell me, and I don't have any reason not to believe it, that usually people don't want to come out for a class. That's not a benefit to them. They want several classes, and then
Sure.
if they come out for 2 classes, they miss out on teaching more classes on
Right.
campus. So
Right.
I think the pathway for us is just to come up with some incentive program where we grow our own teachers.
I agree. Okay. Good, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Do we have any questions down here? Okay.
One more.
Mr.
Sorry.
Rosenthal, change.
I actually had a whole bunch of them highlighted here, and when I opened up my iAnnotate, they all went away, so. But what would you,
Back one at a time into your brain.
yeah, exactly. What's left of it today. What would you consider a success as far as the number of kids across all demographics in pre-AP, AP courses?
Well, my altruistic philosophy is that whatever percentage of students are going to college, then that same percentage, if it's 80%, should experience at least one AP course before they leave high school, or one dual credit course. Of course, that's, like I said, my altruistic vision. However, I would say that combining dual credit and pre-AP, I'd hate to say, but I'd like to see us up in the 30s.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
I have a couple of specific questions. One is, does Naviance support Apply Texas? Or
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because I heard a different answer to that question from a student, so I will tell them that it does, and maybe they can figure out how that works. And then another question is, do we still have a project manager in place for this Naviance implementation, or is that time over?
No, we still have, and we're working with Hobson's right now. We have help from Hobson's, and you're still working with us, or is it Julie?
Excuse me, ma'am, you're going to need to speak at a microphone, because we have a lot of people who like to listen to our meetings online, and they like to be sure they hear everything.
Yes, I am still managing the project, and we do have a collaborative project manager with Hobson's as well.
Okay.
So I'm still actively involved. We're looking now at setting up the course plans, so we're quite involved with that.
Okay, and from what I can understand, there's still a lot of data and information to be imported into the students' individual.
Yes, ma'am. What we've imported so far are the student demographic data and the parents, so that parents can log in as well. We have imported the course master, and we're making sure that it is very clean as to what we're looking at it being offering starting next year. And then in the next several days, we'll be creating the course plans.
Sorry, excuse me. Could you clarify what the course master is?
The courses that we offer here in Fort Bend ISD.
Okay.
So how much credit is it worth? What's the course title called?
And so they can build their 4-year plans.
Exactly. So that's what we'll be doing next, is creating the actual 4-year plans based on the distinguished endorsements, the 5 plans. That's actually, a lot of that work is going to be accomplished this week. And then the next step will be the students, as they go in, the training is in November, right, for the counselors to show students how to do that, and then in the very early spring, students will start doing that. I'll be involved in all of that as project manager. The next piece of data that will come in will be the students' transcript history, so that we, based on the course plans that the students choose, can see what they've accomplished.
Terry, Excuse me, you just asked a question. I think I gave the wrong answer, but I saw Applied Texas on my data. Was that from last year, Terry? Yeah, you'll have to come up to the mic. Was the Applied Texas data that I saw from last year, not this year?
Just clarification, the Applied Texas data that's on your handouts is just Applied Texas. That did not count Common Application. I know Mr. George had some questions about that. That didn't count Common Application, also a lot of private university applications that were outside of the system. So the numbers are a little bit higher. Also about Naviance, currently it is not supported with Applied Texas, but will be soon, we hope. Naviance and Hobson's is working on that right now, but it is with Common App.
My apologies for that.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I had a lot of questions, or a few questions about the data, and maybe I'll make a time to come talk to you about that, because I looked at some of the numbers and wondered some of the things that Mr. George brought up about what do these contacts mean, what when we say, we have a range of contact hours from 2 to 839, so I just, different people doing different things, so it doesn't seem, one questions then the numbers that are in the chart, so.
Sure, be happy to do that.
I just wondered, there seems to be a large range in the numbers, so maybe there's.
And I would just say some of the advisors just didn't track their data as well. We will be able to do that better with Naviance.
Right, so then it's hard to draw meaning from the numbers if they're not, and I know you mentioned that in part of the written report.
Yeah.
So it's important as we look at these charts to realize that they may or may not be statistically accurate when we look at them.
Right. And I mentioned that as well with the scholarships.
Oh, yes.
I mentioned, yes, because I said that I felt we didn't have a real baseline we could rely on.
Right, so, okay, well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. George.
Ma'am, one question I have is, what is the percentage of the people who are taking AP courses and actually going and taking that AP exams?
I will have that data for you. I've gathered it for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And for the graduating class of 2013 and 2014. And it is data that is a little laborious to gather because College Board gives us the number of kids who took what test and what scores they made, but we don't share our data as to the students who were in the class. So I had to actually get several reports and cross-reference them. So you will be getting that data. On some campuses, it's a high number, but I would say that we'll be looking at it by course subject, because that's where I think you will see more aha moments as to where some kids are taking AP courses but not taking the exams. It's more of a subject as opposed to a campus. Okay. And that's what we need to look at.
And also I heard a rumor, I don't know it is true at all, but some cases where the teachers maybe they're not encouraging the students to go and take these exams. I don't know, how do you hold teachers accountable to make sure they encourage every student who take AP exam go and take an AP course, take an AP exam, and how do you monitor that? Is there any system in place?
That's a real conundrum, and I have worked in districts where every student who took an AP exam took a course, had to take the exam, and the district had to pay for the exams legally. That's how it happens. The recommendation that came forth last June that I brought forth was to rotate it every 4 years by discipline, that we would pay, for example, 1 year for all the language arts exams, and then look at that data. Everybody who's in English 3, English 4, any of those courses, we would look at that data and work on it for the next 3 years. The next year do all the math, the next year all the science, the next year all the social studies, and continue that rotational basis so that we can see where our gaps are and where we need to work.
Sure. And I found in some school districts around us, they do hold teachers accountable, saying that your students, 50% of your students must take AP exam. Right. Not 1 year, in a regular basis. If that happened, then you're going to be held accountable for, maybe you're not promoting enough or something like that. Something like that, maybe we don't have anything in place like that.
No, we don't.
We don't.
But our exams have become very affordable. If kids are on free and reduced lunch, and we benefit from that also if we're paying for the exam. Sure. It winds up being about $18 to $20.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you very much.
opportunity. I know you gave me more time than I was probably should have had, but I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more from you maybe next month or whenever you're back on the, I almost said back on the docket, but I meant to say back on the agenda. All right, I think we're ready for audience items, so Mrs. Porter, I would need those who have submitted their names. All right. All right, looks like we have several speakers tonight, and be reminded, if you've signed up to speak, that you'll have 3 minutes, and we'll ask you to speak into the microphone clearly so that we can hear you and everyone here can hear you. And Mrs. Bailey will time you and let you know when you have 30 seconds left to in your 3 minutes. So the first speaker tonight is Jay Clancy. Mr. Clancy, I think you've done this before.
Well, I don't know.
We have two, I guess you sent in your request twice, is that right?
Yeah, but if you want to give me 6 minutes, you can.
Actually, I probably don't because I have another big stack here, so I think I'm going to go with your regular allotment.
Great, thank you. My name is Jay Clancy. I'm a community leader at Commonwealth. And when people ask me why I moved into Commonwealth, I say because Julie Diaz sold us our home. You see, when I grew up, we never stayed in any school for more than 2 years. And so when I got to high school, I didn't know anybody. And as you know, being in high school without any friends can be profoundly lonely. And so when we decided to come to Commonwealth, when we decided to come to Sugar Land, we said we wanted our kids to be raised among a community of friends. And we went and talked to many people, or many principals around Fort Bend. And when we met Julie Diaz, who was then the principal at Commonwealth, we decided that that was a place where we could raise our kids among a community of friends. So we've got one who graduated Clements a few years ago. We've got a sophomore who just made varsity swimming and a freshman who's on the just made the golf team. They've taken just enough AP classes to keep them off of recreational drugs, but not enough that we have to put them on performance-enhancing drugs. And I realized how well our feeder pattern works last week when I went to the Clements open house and saw how many people I knew there in every one of their classes. My kids don't have to go to high school alone, and I'm really excited about that. And more important, my freshman, after 3 weeks of being in school, just asked a girl to go to homecoming with him, and she said yes, which is something I wasn't able to do until college. So if you're from Commonwealth, if you could raise your hand. We're here because there were several things that are happening in our area that we're concerned about, which you guys all know about. And also, there's a lot of decisions that you guys are going to be making over the next 6 months that are going to affect us. For example, we heard a few rumors, which you probably heard about, that our feeder pattern might be disrupted. And I will tell you that I think I speak for all of us when we slept a lot better after the last board meeting when we realized that, A, you guys have a policy committing to maintaining neighborhood schools and pure feeder patterns. B, that you guys also are starting from a well-thought-out plan. And C, assurances from several of you guys that it would be crazy to disrupt a feeder pattern that worked so well for over a decade. So I want to say personally, I'm very excited about the plan that you guys are, and the direction you guys are moving forward. I think it's working. And on behalf of the Commonwealth Homeowners Association, we'd like to offer any help we can to help you in the decisions that are coming up in the next 6 months. And I also want to provide some support to Dr. Dupree's suggestion that we have open mic karaoke to make these meetings more interesting.
Ah, that sounds
Thank you.
Amen.
good. We'll call you for the first, all right. Okay, is that me? Is that sound system still in the budget?
Can I just ask if Mr. Clancy's going to be the first volunteer to sing.
Well, if we have a lot of static, we won't be able to hear him sing.
It's on. Turn it off.
Okay, while we're waiting for a new microphone, I'll just mention that we have 4 people who've submitted to speak about the Creekstone walking to school situation. I think you're all speaking in the same direction, so amongst yourselves, you need to decide which 3 of you are speaking, or I'll just call on the first 3 that came in. So if you know who each other are, work that out while we move through the rest of our agenda, or our audience items. So David Bristow is the next on the list to speak, and he surpassed Mr. Clancy by sending in actually 3 requests. We got it 3 times. I don't know.
Maybe somebody was on text at once.
Okay, well, hard to know, but I do have 3 versions.
Okay.
And we need a microphone before you can start talking.
I'll only speak once. Unlike Jay, I don't need 6 minutes.
Thank you. And how about karaoke? How do you feel about that?
I don't sing.
Okay.
Okay, are we live here? Yep,
We're live. Thank you, Mr. Bristow. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to address the Board of Trustees and the administration. My name is David Bristow, and I've been a resident of Sugar Land and the Commonwealth for 26 years. In that time, my wife and I have raised 3 kids and put them all the way through Fort Bend ISD schools. As a longtime resident with 38 parent years in the school district, I've come to realize that the schools to which our kids are assigned, K through 12, are the focus of our neighborhoods. As longtime scout leaders, my wife and I know that community activities are tied to the schools, and particularly in the beginning to elementary schools. With that in mind, my neighborhood's interests correlate nicely with the board's stated desires to maintain neighborhood schools, preserve pure feeder patterns, maintain a student-centered approach, ensure students zoned to campuses are not moved or negatively impacted when distributing programs among schools, and create attendance boundaries that will stand for 5 or more years when possible. I advocate that the board and administration take advantage of the work performed by the steering committee, particularly with a view towards maintaining the current feeder pattern from Commonwealth Elementary through Fort Settlement Middle School to Clements High School as proposed by the steering committee. That said, we come to a current area of concern for my neighborhood. Through no fault of the current board and administration, the district fell behind the capacity curve. Oakland Elementary and Commonwealth Elementary are paying the price for that error. Oakland has its own advocates, so I'll speak only for Commonwealth. We understand that something had to be done to relieve overcrowding in the short term until Elementary 47 opens. However, the current 2-school diversion scheme breaks up our neighborhood and diverts young students to other neighborhood schools at the worst possible time in their residency in Commonwealth. That is, when they are new to the neighborhood. Please find a way to rationalize this diversion so that new students from Commonwealth are diverted to a single school in order to minimize the unfortunate disruption in their academic and social lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bristow. Our next speaker tonight is Tammy Marino. There she is.
I'm wearing heels and I still have to move the mic. The snow blows. No, I'm kidding.
You're
on the clock.
Little
Commentary. I have a very short thing. It's okay if I'm on the clock. Okay. So I hope by now you all know how much I value your service to the community. I think I've said that at lots of board meetings. But having said that, I hope you will all also understand I feel like I and so many others in the community have been pushing a boulder uphill. And it's big and it's heavy. And I still kind of think I can keep pushing, but 7 years is a really long time to push this boulder up a hill. The community at large has lost trust in a board and administration that appear ready, willing, and able to make changes, yet they keep planning and not executing. I urge you all to consider voting on those changes that have already been weighed in on by the community, that have already been discussed with and approved by this board. Show the community that you are willing to execute necessary changes prior to asking us to support a $500 million bond. In the foreign world, like Facebook and the like, I am one of the last remaining folks who speaks in defense and on behalf of this board and administration. Know that I appreciate the accelerated timeline. In fact, I celebrated it quite publicly on Facebook. January is a vast improvement to April, but January can fast turn into April. We need changes implemented for fall 2015. Please don't make us keep pushing the same boulder up a hill. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Marino. Please hold your applause. All right, our next speaker is Mr. Mike Trevisono. Did I say it right? I know it is, but tell me how to say it correctly.
Mike Trevisano.
Trevisano. Thanks.
Hi, Superintendent Dupree and distinguished board members. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns over how you're dealing with the Clements Global Studies Academy issue. My son is enrolled in this excellent program. I appreciate the board and the administration's diligence regarding this issue. No one likes the situation, but it's still here, and you need to do the right thing. We all realize that. I thought, community involvement would be present from both sides of the issue, but after reading Dr. Dupree's letter, at least it appears to me, the letter that came out September 5th, and observing the board's workshop on September 8th, I feel as if only one side of the community has been involved in this. And I'm here to ask you to involve the other side, the GSA community. The GSA Academy, like all other academies, it was created and marketed by the district with a commitment that the program would be good for our kids. We bought this idea and we committed our children to this program. We believe in the academies, but now we wonder about the district's commitment, and we recognize that there are no safeguards that exist to protect our kids from changes that are being considered. There is a very active pressure group we know about, wanting an immediate action. But complex issues like this take time to solve. Decide carefully how your decision will impact this group of Clements Rangers. Please do the right thing. Academies are a tool for preparing our students for college and even choosing a career. They're a great tool for that. Can also be used as a model for transitioning to the HB5 new regulations and rules. We're not against making changes to the current academies, the GSA or any academy. We know that programs may need to change over time. That's a fact of life. They're not carved in stone. Please do not make rash judgments on this issue. Once an academy has accepted a student and the student has signed the academy contract, we expect a student will remain at that physical school where the academy is located until graduation.
30 seconds.
Please do the right thing. Protect our kids and honor your commitment.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Danesh Shah.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I am following Mike's footstep here. Here to address concerns about the GSA Academy program being moved and the letter sent out by Dr. Dupree to Clements High School parents on September 5th. The letter outlines 4 specific measures taken to address the demands from a group of parents who want to uproot the academy out of Clements. The letter may appease one group of influential parents, but the action has hurt academy students. A meeting about the academy was held by the administration last May at Clements. It was promised that the input from the entire community would be taken and students' welfare would be the top priority. Some members of the board were also present at the meeting, and I, along with other parents, had a chance to speak to you. In spite of that promise, academic community was left out of the process while district was working on the measures outlined in the letter that we find out after school starts. We already had signed the contract to continue in the academy well before Dr. Dupree's letter was received. Many of these actions provide no benefit to any students, but have negative impact on effectiveness of the academy. Lack of appropriate counseling support this year is just one example. Yielding to demands from one group that hurts other is not fair. It is a bad policy, and please, board should assure the stability of the programs that you have already approved in the past. The GSA Academy students are integrated into the Clements ecosystem. They have friends that are both academy and regular students. They are in clubs, sports, and participate in all activities. The teenage years are crucial and difficult enough as it is, as some of you have already expressed with your own family. These students cannot be forced to change schools midway and accept a completely new ecosystem for no fault of their own. FBISD requires students enrolling in academies to sign a contract with rigorous requirements. Students work really hard to fulfill their promise, and so should district. Academy students were promised one set of things and now midway through are delivered a different and diluted program. District always has a precedence to phase out a program
30
if
seconds.
necessary, thank you, rather than abruptly ending or changing it. Why apply different standards to Clements or the academy program? The district must honor its commitment to already enrolled students. No academy program should be moved, shut down, or diluted until current students graduate. Community is paying attention, and we want to work with you in finding a fair solution. We are disappointed by the measures so far, but my sincere hope is that this request will encourage you to take corrective actions.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you for your attention, and sorry for a few seconds.
No problem, thank you. All right, our next speaker is Mr. Stuart Jackson.
So in an effort to not sound redundant after the previous two speakers, I'd like to broaden this conversation a little bit, and I think any policy that's related specifically to one program is a mistake, and we need to broaden this conversation to all programs. That would include special education, that includes academies, and hopefully vocational programs in the future. Each of these programs' success is dependent on the students, the teachers, and the administrators that are committed to these programs. Until recently, I made the wild assumption that there was actually a policy in place, written policy, as to how programs would be started, moved, and shut down. Apparently, there is no such policy, and I would like the board to consider implementing a policy, a written policy that states just programs in general, how they will be set up, how they will be run, and the commitment that they're going to make to those students. Along that line, the two items that I would include in that is the grandfathering of students to ensure that those that signed up for these programs are allowed to complete the program without disruption to curriculum, resources, and location. As is mentioned before, they've signed a contract, and the student has committed to the location, they've committed to the school, not just the academy, and the district should honor that commitment. Also, this follows precedent within Fort Bend ISD. As far as I know, they've never severed a program entirely, a successful program. Okay, they've transitioned them, and I'd like to continue that, and again, I'd like it as a written policy. Also, those that are participating in these programs, when we have meetings like this or when decisions are to be made, I would like the board to actively tell the people that are relevant to that program that these decisions are being made. So if you're making a decision about an academy, instead of requiring those people at the academy to continue to monitor the website to see when these things are being done, some way to actively let them know. Without grandfathering these things in, class rankings can be of students that are being pulled out of these programs and moved back to their zone schools can be impacted. Class allegiances and friendships are obviously severed. and the variable resources such as teachers can therefore result in variable results. I have a daughter at GSA, I have another daughter as 8th grade at QVMS, and I have a son at Baines. My daughter at QVMS wants to go to Dulles, my son will end up at Ridgepoint. I will have 3 kids in 3 different schools, and that's a testament to this district.
30 seconds.
You've met the requirements. It meets the requirements of my kids. It does require us to drive all over the place to get them to 3 different schools all the time, but we can do that. We're willing to make that commitment. All I ask is that the district make a similar commitment back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Our next speaker tonight is Jesse Matthew.
My name is Jessie Matthew, respected board
Maybe
members.
you could tip the microphone down just a little bit. Thank you.
Respected board members, I'm standing here on behalf of the parents of Creekstone Village in Riverstone subdivision. Currently, we are facing an issue concerning transportation to and from Elkins High School. We know that there is a law that exists in Texas that transportation is not being allowed for the schools within 2-mile radius. But as parents, we are deeply concerned with the safety and well-being of our children. We outline the heavy traffic, ever-changing weather conditions, and risk of the robbery as the central points of our concerns. There has been at least one reported robbery that has included one of our children. Our children are facing a heavy traffic as they walk to and from the school. Thompson Ferry Road is not closed and it is wide open, and Johnson Developers' heavy construction vehicles still continue to do their works. Children take a shortcut cutting across the Thompson Ferry Road at Walden Park Lane, which is another dangerous area of heavy traffic and no crosswalk. As we are all working parents, we cannot provide transportation at all times. We are worried about their safety every moment, and we are not comfortable letting them walk to school and back with all these safety concerns going on. With all the safety issues, I would like the board to take a decision and grant us a transportation effectively as soon as possible.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Joel Tekanoth. Maybe it's Joe. Maybe I didn't say it.
My name is Joe Kenneth, respected board members and administration. I have the same concern. This year, the Fort Bend ISD has suspended an existing transportation facility of Creekstone to Elkins High School. We have 388 parents signed a petition, sent it to all the concerned parties with all the safety concerns. And so far, we never received any reply from Fort Bend ISD. First of all, the suspension of the bus service notice, send it to the parents a week before. I don't think that it is you have taken a decision a week before. And this was very frustrating and unable to make a quick arrangement. As per Fort Bend ISD map show that our children has to go all the way through the Creekstone Village Drive and find a way into another neighborhood, which is Stonebrook, then to Knight's Court, which is the road passing in front of the Elkins High School. Unfortunately, that Knight's Court passing in front of the Elkins High School has no sidewalk. They enter into the parking lot and then find a way into their classes. The only and one direct access to Elkins High School is to exit through the Walden Park Lane to Thompson Ferry, which leads to Knight's Court, but Thompson Ferry Road has no sidewalk. Even the principal himself sent an email to all the parents about the speedy driveways while crossing Knight Courts. Our children are facing a heavy traffic when they walk to and from their school. And Thompson Ferry Road is technically, they closed when going through the Creekstone Village Drive. but it is wide open. Johnson developers, heavy construction vehicles still continue to do their job. And they convert already the Thompson Ferry, half of the road, into the residential area. When children take a shortcut crossing Thompson Ferry Road at Walden Park Lane, which is another dangerous area of heavy traffic, no crosswalk, no sidewalk. There is no change of pre-existing condition to suspend the existing transport facility.
30 seconds.
Or Fort Bend ASD is an economic crisis that we need to put our children's safety at risk. With this, I say we need to get we request board to take appropriate action timely so that our children get the transportation at the earliest.
The last speaker tonight is Mr. Rodney McGraw.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening to Superintendent Dupree and the distinguished members of the board. My name is Rodney McGraw, and I am a resident of the Creekstone Village. I'd like to, sum up what my other neighbors have spoken on. I speak on behalf of at least the 388 parents that signed the petition that we submitted to the board. And I just really want to stress our concern that, first of all, we are concerned about our children's safety, but in addition to that, we're concerned that we have not received a response from the board in regards to our concerns. Again, Thompson Ferry is a high-traffic road. There is no crosswalk. There is no shoulder on the road. Now, for our children to veer around and go through another subdivision just to be able to come out on Nice Court, it is an inconvenience not only for our children, but for the children that live in the additional subdivision, because that would increase traffic as well. What I would like to do is, again, just summarize that we are concerned about our children. We want to find out what the board is willing to do, and most of all, we'd like to make sure that the communication is open between the board and the residents of Creekstone, because we are concerned about our children's safety. That's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGraw. All right, that concludes our audience items for tonight. The board will now convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act for purposes of the private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters as authorized by law, to consider purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and for personnel matters. The board is now convened in closed session.